Hello, long time no see. It's me, Hollow, or Aaron, if you can recall. It's been a while. Today I wanted to talk to you about a game that I've been playing recently. It's a new Souls-like called Mortal Shell, and I found myself really enjoying it, really impressed, and in fact I realized actually this is the best Souls-like I've ever played. I think there's sort of 5 main components or elements that really added to this genre of game and stood out, and what I want to mention today. But interestingly, on the other hand, there's 2 main elements, 1 main element and 1 thing that I can nitpick, that really stood out as bad, really bad, kind of like hard to ignore. So let's get into it. Every Souls-like game I've ever played, and I've played, well, a lot of them, seem to have a bit of a trend. They bring 1 or maybe even a few unique elements that are pretty cool that maybe we haven't ever seen in an actual Souls game or a Souls-like game. These are things that I see and I go, wow, I want to see this in any future Souls or Souls-like game from now on. A few good examples of this might be Code Vein with its awesome codes, which lets you swap playstyle and build entirely hundreds of times if you wish, during one playthrough on one character. There's so many codes in that game and so many ways to play because of that. It was really great, and also it had anime visuals, which you gotta love. Or hey, the Surge games, which to be honest I'm not a huge fan of, but I can appreciate their very cool targeting system in which you can target a specific body part of an enemy to focus, so that you could attack maybe on an armored leg for increased damage, or specifically and intentionally target the big chunky chest piece even though it's more resistant, just so you can steal it after you land the kill. You can even steal weapons this way too. Oh, and I'd be amiss not to mention Lords of the Fallen. Perhaps in the most unique way you could imagine for a Souls-like, they chose to make a game that I don't want to play, which was a really interesting mechanic. Okay, memes aside, you should probably get the picture now when I say unique additions to a Souls-like genre. Now, let's talk about what Mortal Shell brought to the table. First up, the Harden mechanic. In Mortal Shell, you cannot block with any weapon or build. However, we can harden. Turning into literal stone, we are completely immune to damage, and if anything attacks us during this, it'll stagger. Simple concept, but it's how they implemented this that was so special. You can activate your harden at literally any time. You could be mid-attack combo and about to be hit, you can harden. They'd stagger, now you smash them. You could be leaping through the air and then harden. Just hang in the air. Quickly avoid an incoming arrow, harden while standing in fire. Maybe you're just not sure when the next attack is coming, say in a boss fight, and so you harden and just wait for a bit because it lasts a while. It's so versatile and creates very satisfying gameplay. It is one of the most freeing combat mechanics I've ever experienced, and it allows you to play with an incredibly aggressive playstyle with every build against even the biggest bosses. This is an incredible addition and definitely one that I will miss in every Souls or Souls-like game I play from now on. Next though, the Fog. Holy crap, this is so good. As you progress through the world and defeat the many enemies and press on and challenge the monsters around each corner, you will eventually work your way through a level and meet the boss fight at the end. After you win, you grab one of the sacred glands. I know, it sounds weird, but trust me, you grab the gland and now you need to return it to the Dark Father so he can use its power to give you a new ability. That's all well and good, except when you grab the gland, suddenly you're in the fog. Give me the gland! Right out the neck. Welcome to the fog. While you are carrying a sacred gland, you are in a different realm. It's all foggy and shit. And all of the levels change, and there's like 5 times the amount of enemies. You know all those stone chests we've seen that have been locked? They're now unlocked. That's right, the entire world changes with new enemies in massive numbers, which also they changed the level design here too. On top of that, as I mentioned, there's a lot of secret chests in the world with great loot or important upgrades that you can now find and access in the fog, and there's even new mini bosses to fight out there in what might have been a previously safe spot. To have to suddenly escape the region that you just cleared is terrifying and so fun. It's an absolute mad dash back to the hub. Super good concept. Very fun. I'm going to be cheeky with this next one now and combine 2 concepts into 1 point. In Mortal Shell, you actually play as the Unborn, which is a sort of parasite that inhabits the dead bodies of former, I can't really call them heroes, they're not good people, but they were strong, and I'll use that. So by finding where these guys died and then inhabiting their bodies, we can use their strength for our own purposes. And by spending tar, the currency of the game, we can learn more about the shells, who they were, and what they were about, and even how they died.
The madman I would come to realize was not burdened with delusions, but truth. Yet the wary ear corrupts honest words into lies. I took him for a spy and cut him down. How else could he know so much about me?
The shells are the builds of the game, where you choose passive benefits while focusing on the playstyle that we want to go with. Harros is about hardening, Solomon is about building and spending resolve, TL is the dex build with a more powerful dodge and high stamina, and Aerodrom's like the strength build, super high health, tiny stamina pool. And these builds are mostly set in stone, but you can use any weapon with any shell, so you could use the dex weapon with Aerodrome if you really wanted to. Each and every weapon also comes with its own abilities too, to be exact. Take the Smouldering Mace. It's a big, heavy fire hammer, and you can buff it up with more fire effects to deal damage over time when you strike an enemy. Or, alternatively, do the big fire explosion that blasts everyone in the radius. Each weapon has its own style of play and abilities with various uses, right? But what's really great about this is when you use these resolve abilities, you're in iframes. You can't be hurt or stopped anymore, giving you this super satisfying ability to combo into a harden, continue that combo into a resolve weapon ability for even more damage and more iframes. And you can do this to a boss for insane burst. This was a great system to tackle the fact that there's a small number of builds and playstyles in the game, and it was a really unique way to do it. Alright, for the last unique system I want to gush over, it's the familiar mechanic. Every time you use anything, you become more familiar with it, and as you become more familiar, you improve your understanding and use of it. Eventually, say the healing mushrooms, they'll heal you faster. You get added benefits like extra resolve on alcohol consumption. Maybe those poison mushrooms you keep eating for some reason, well, they eventually become something you could take to become immune to poison. Even your ability to play the instruments. The more you use something, the better you get at it. So, the less you've used something, like a new item, like a healing, the better you get. The more you get out of it. So healing items, the more you use them, heal you more, the more familiar you are with them. For example, the loot. Me being literally trash at playing that loot, but now I use it a second time. I'm better. It's such a subtle mechanic that encourages you to test and experiment with whatever items you find when you find them, rather than holding on to them and maybe never even using them. So I'm singing a lot of praise for this game. It's honestly a great game, and this is a really good showing for this new team as their new first IP. Cold Symmetry has created this dark and interesting world that's mechanically satisfying and features many unique elements too. But, and there's a big but here, there's two aspects that are a huge letdown that you need to know about if you're thinking of playing this game. Firstly, I found that every boss fight in the game was very simple mechanically, often with only a couple of mechanics to think about, turning quickly into lengthy slugfests rather than, say, a real battle. Though they are often visually brilliant and the atmosphere and the areas you find these fights in are all awesome, the lore behind them or whatever. But when it comes down to it, only one fight had me leaning forward and excited by the mechanics at play, and sadly it didn't last. It was only phase 1 where it really made me feel like that, and as soon as we hit phase 2, things just went a lot simpler again, which is a huge shame when they've done so well in almost every other place of the game, and this is an important part of the game. Secondly though, and maybe even more importantly, Mortal Shell is an extremely short game. I completed it in just 9 hours, which meant it was over before I felt like I even got started. You start the game in the Fallgrim Woods region, and then are tasked with finding 3 temples, and in those temples you need to find the Sacred Gland via the boss fight. Each temple acts as a new level and region with a totally different atmosphere and aesthetic, different gimmicks and mechanics at play, which are pretty bare bones, and I would have liked to see them be a bit more interesting with that. But the temples are also extremely short. I was able to pass through the temple grounds in like 15 minutes, and so I was left wondering, is Mortal Shell a short and sweet game, or a game that's too short to be sweet. Like I said, I've loved my time with the game, and I definitely recommend it. And though there's a couple things I can nitpick about it, there's a lot of stuff I can drown in praise. I think Cold Symmetry have created something special with Mortal Shell, and it's something that I wish there was more of. For a new team, this was a strong first showing, and one that I hope is largely successful, so they are given more opportunities in the future and create new games and more DLC for Mortal Shell maybe. I think if you like Souls-like games, this is one you should definitely check out, and importantly, support so we can see more from them in the future. Okay, so that was weird but kind of fun. I hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to talk about this game that I like, and hey, I have a YouTube channel, so I can do that. If you don't know, I do upload on the RageGamingVideos channel, so if you want to see more about Mortal Shell, learn different things, maybe check out a guide on where to find the weapons and the shells in the game, then I've got you covered on those videos, linked in the description, maybe they're on the screen, I don't know. I've been wanting to make videos like this for a really long time now, and I finally made myself do it, so it's good to be back, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.